Honestly, asking for help is a sign of strength. It's a sign of strength because you're confident enough in yourself to be able to say, I'm going to ask for help in this thing that I'm not great at. And that's showing vulnerability. But also, what it does is it empowers the people around you, specifically the people that you're asking for help from.
Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. My first and most important question is, how are you? Like, for real, Michael, how are you doing?
What a great question for somebody who actually cares to hear the answer. People ask that question all the time. And, if you stop and take a breath and actually think about it, we could have a full podcast just on that alone, I would
hmm
imagine. But how am I doing? This morning I'm doing well. I woke up early and I got downstairs, gave my dogs a hug and a kiss, did my morning routine, got my running out of the way, actually made love to my wife after the kids went to school, packed my stuff for work, got to the office, got some emailing done, and I feel really good. I mean, there's things going on in my life that I'm a little nervous about, quite frankly, but I think that that's just kind of part of not only being an entrepreneur, but also just being human. Like I take my health very seriously. And so I just got a full body MRI scan and a 120 biomarker blood panel. And the majority of it is really, really good. They found something that is scary for me. They found like a little centimeter uh, thing on my liver that they are almost 100% confident is something called a hemo something, which is basically just a blood clot that,
mm
25% of people have. But, the fact that it's not 100% conclusive yet that that's what it is, they want me to go back and get another MRI. So it's a little nerve wracking, but I feel pretty good. I mean, I take very good care of myself, and 107 of my 120 biomarkers are perfect. So, I've got a few tweaks there, but my health really is, I think, the most important part of my life because my family is the priority in my life. And so if my health in any way, shape, or form is in jeopardy, I'm not going to be 100% for them. So, I really do put my health as my priority, my absolute priority before my family, before my business, before anything, so that I could just show up as the best father, husband, brother, son, and then ultimately business owner, business partner, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard you say that, you put yourself first before your wife and your kids and your business. And it seems like some people take that as like a controversial take. And for me, I'm like, I see it as like you making sure you're good to do anything that you need to do. I mean, the cliches are there for a reason, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. Why do you think people find you saying that, like you're putting yourself as a priority first, as like a controversial statement? You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, because most people put themselves at the bottom of their totem pole.
Mm,
And I think we've been conditioned to kind of think that way. The fact of the matter is, life is about how we show up on a day-to-day basis. Success in life, happiness is about how we show up on a day-to-day basis. And if we are at the bottom of that priority list, meaning we put our kids first, we put our wife first or our husband first, we put our business first, we just don't show up 100% ever. My goal is to show up 100% every day. And that means that I have to be first. And that doesn't mean that I sacrifice time with my wife and kids. Although sometimes, my son, I'll be in the middle of a workout and my son will say, on the weekend, and my son will say, "Hey, Dad, can we go play football?" And I'll be like, "Hey, buddy, I'm working out. You can come in here and train with me, and then after training, we can go throw the football." But just, and I think I'm setting a precedent for my sons by doing that, saying, "Hey, like, we train." We work out, and it's the best way to stay healthy. I'm going to be 45 in a month, and I feel like I'm, 30.
Yeah.
My biological age actually just came back at 32.7. So I'm feeling like maybe I am 30, but at the end of the day, I have prioritized myself before anything and everything, because I learned about that when I got sober, that if I'm not taking care of myself, there's no shot I can take care of anybody else. And I've made that my philosophy in life. I wake up super early in the morning before anybody else in my household so that I could do that and not feel guilty about it. I have no shame in saying that I'm the priority in my life.
Mm.
Zero. And if anybody wants to, like, it would be one thing if I woke up with everybody else and my wife and kids were, having breakfast every morning, and I was nowhere to be found because I was off, working out in the gym or sitting in the sauna. But that's just not the case. I wake up before they do so that I can take care of that stuff, so that by the time they're getting up, I am 100%. Like, think about a car, right? Like, you're taking a road trip, and you want to be able to pay attention to your fuel levels, because if you weren't, you might run out of gas and then get stuck on the side of the road. I never run out of gas because I make sure I check the fuel every single morning,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah. Speaking of your morning routine, I know you have some non-negotiables. What are those and how they become non-negotiables for you?
My non-negotiables are pretty simple. I mean, for me anyway, but when I stepped out of the world of addiction and into the world of recovery, I was told that prayer was something I should deeply consider. So that was something that I did early on, 21 years ago. I started my prayer practice. I believe that prayer is, whether you're religious or not, believe in God or not, it's an opportunity to ask for help in the beginning of the day. And help is something that all humans struggle with asking for. We all do. And so I've just gotten super comfortable with asking for help because I get on my hands and knees every single morning and ask God for it. But my non negotiables are, I wake up early in the morning. And sometimes I give myself grace. Like, if my body is not feeling great and I go to bed at 11 o'clock at night because we went out for dinner with friends or whatever, I'm not going to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning just to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'll sleep until 6:30. However, on a day-to-day basis, my regular routine is wake up at around 5:15, 5:30, get up out of bed quietly, not to wake up my wife, walk downstairs into the kitchen and put down a 30-ounce, jar of water with a bunch of things that I add to that water for health, electrolytes. I use this product called IM8, which is a one-stop shop daily essential sort of vitamin mineral, thing. I also add some um, colostrum to it, and I add some curcumin and resveratrol, NAD plus, and glutathione. And I drink that, and then I go into the bathroom and I take a piss. I have an oral care routine that is important to me that I started doing about a year and a half ago after having a really incredible guy named Dr. Jonathan Levine on my podcast, who really introduced me to this world of, the convergence of oral care and overall health care. That's just like overall health. I didn't really know. I didn't really think about the two being so connected. But, I brush my teeth with an electric toothbrush. I scrape my tongue. I floss with a water pick, and then I use a flosser, and then I rinse with a mouth rinse. It takes about 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and That's another health check for me. And then I have a skincare routine that I like to do. I wash my face. I use this stuff called Caldera Lab, which really just helps keep my skin fresh and clean and kind of wrinkle free. I mean, since I've been using it, I literally have completely lost my crow's feet, which I had about 2.5 years ago. And so I believe in that stuff. And then I drop on the floor on my knees and my hands and knees, and I pray for about 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Right after I pray, I'm up to 60 push-ups straight. So I do 60 push-ups in the morning. And then I do down dog, up dog for 5 rounds. And I take my time with it and I breathe. And then I do cat cow for 5 rounds. And that's typically, my non-negotiable morning routine where whether I'm traveling, I'm at home, that's what I do. If I have more time and I'm feeling like I'm, gonna give myself some real pampering, right after I do my cat cow, I'll go into the guest bedroom, which is right off of the bathroom that I use. I don't use our master bathroom because my wife breaks my chops about waking her up in the morning. So I do all this stuff downstairs in the guest bathroom, but there's a guest bedroom right off the guest bathroom, which is kind of my meditation room now. And I use a red light panel and I sit in front of that and I meditate for 20 minutes. Then I make my way over to the garage and I sit in the sauna for about 20 to 30 minutes and I read. Then I sit in the cold plunge and I do that for about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on my thresholds. And I get out of there and I stop off at the mirror real quick before walking back into my house. I tell myself that I'm a good guy and today's going to be a good day. I smile, I look at myself in the eyes, and I just say, "Go get him, Tiger." And then I go in and, I'm ready to take on the day.
Fuck yeah, then you're ready to crush it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's an interesting story about you looking in a mirror, on that day. I think it was August 1st you mentioned on the Rich Roll podcast about you looking in the mirror and saying you hate yourself, and now you look in the mirror and you have a totally different view of yourself. I mean, that's a very long and sort of arduous journey to get there, but is there any key points you would say that helped you get to this point where you can actually enjoy the person that you are and like the person that you are now?
I've got something called the 3 C's that can be applied to anything in life, in my opinion, in order to see growth and become great. It's commit is the first C, which is arguably the hardest. A lot of people reach out to me specifically around recovery and entrepreneurship and ask me, what's the formula? And my first question back to them is typically, what time do you go to bed? And they kind of scratch their chin, and they're like, "Why would you ask me that?" And I said, because committing to going to bed early is a for sure stepping stone to starting your day the next day right. And if you can't commit to going to bed early, getting up early is really hard. A lot of the stuff that I do to set myself up for success on a day-to-day basis happens between 5 and 7 o'clock in the morning. And so setting a wake up alarm is fine, but really the alarm we should all be setting is the go to bed alarm.
Mm.
And so committing to that and just committing in general is, something that I believe very, very strongly in, and also know is the hardest thing to do. I take a lot of time thinking about if I say I am going to do something through my lips, you bet your ass I'm going to do it, unless there's some sort of injury or some catastrophic hurdle that just can't happen, right? But, for instance, I haven't run a marathon in since 2018. I'd ran a few marathons before that. I'd consider myself a runner in those days. From like 2005 to 2018, I ran a lot. From 2018 till this year, I was not running a lot. I take a run every now and again, but I was really focused on strength and building muscle. I was competing in bodybuilding. And so for whatever reason this year, I decided, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to run the marathon in New York and raise money for Release Recovery, which is an organization I work with. But I thought about it for a while. I thought about it. I didn't tell anybody. I was like, am I going to do this? Do I really want to do it? Like, what is it why do I want to do it? And after a bunch of sort of reflecting on it, I said, yeah, you know what? I do want to do it. Like, it would be awesome to celebrate the first week of my 45th year in life running 26.2 miles. I want to continue raising money and raising awareness for substance abuse prevention. I'm going to run the marathon. And then and only then did I let it slip through my lips.
Mm.
That I've told, everybody, I'm going to fucking do it. I'm going to do it. And that's hard to do. It's hard to do what you say you're going to do, but that is ultimately what people judge us on.
Mhm.
And that's what we judge ourselves on. So the commitment thing is really important. Ultimately, after commitment and success with commitment, commitment breeds confidence. And confidence is what is required for successful people. And there's a big difference between confidence and ego. Ego is not earned, right? Ego is something that is manifested, whether realistically or unrealistically. Confidence is earned. Confidence is something that is real. Confidence is how you feel about yourself, and ego could be a total mask, right? So commitment breeds confidence, and then with enough confidence, courage is inevitable. And I believe it's in that succession. So the three C's for me are really commitment, confidence, courage. And, it's taken years of committing for me to really get to the place where I could say, I genuinely love myself.
Mm.
I genuinely love myself. There are days that suck, of course. I'm a human being, but way more days in my life over the last number of years have I felt awesome and blessed and grateful than not awesome, cursed, and miserable. And I do owe the success of that to commit, confidence, and courage.
Yeah. That's a beautiful little acronym, or not acronym, but like, I don't know. What's words together? What's it called? I don't know.
I
Anyways,
just call it a strategy, philosophy,
there we go.
right? Like it's
Strategy.
just the triple C's, man.
Yeah, triple C's.
It's
There we
just
go.
the
Some alliteration. That's the word I was looking for. Holy cow. Uh, anyways, but yeah, like I work with a ton of athletes, and the one thing that you notice with every athlete, just like you said, that are high performers, is they do what they say they're going to do. That's it. That's if you want to think like, how are these people so successful? How do they do all these things? That's it. That's the one thing that they do that's like consistent above everything else. I'm sure they have their idiosyncrasies and their personal preferences and things that make them unique. But like, if you just look at the bare minimum, what do I need to do to make something happen? You do what you say you're going to do. And then like, I think of confidence the same way you think about it, but I'm like, okay, confidence is like intense trust in oneself. How do I do that? Well, I do that because I committed to something. Now I have the credible evidence. Now I can be confident. And then it's like such a beautiful pathway of being able to actually start believing in yourself based on sort of these small daily actions that you compound over time. And so I think it's a brilliant thing, and it's the cool part about it is like anyone can do it. You don't have to have this sort of like special magical skill talent like to do it. Like if you want to play in the NBA, you probably got to be like 6'8", right? You got to have some height, you got to have some stuff like that. But if you just want to be someone in the world who makes a difference, you don't. There's no. I mean, I don't find myself special. Like I just commit to something and hopefully it works out, right? Try to be a good dude about it. I don't know if you feel the same way about that, but like I think that's what can be empowering to someone who feels like they're at their lowest, they don't have anything left. Well, they do have a choice. Potentially, they do have some agency left. Potentially, I think that's like maybe can be a powerful reminder for a lot of people who may be in the trenches.
Look, before I got sober, I was addicted to alcohol and all kinds of drugs. I overdosed and died on heroin, made it back, and I'm sitting here today. No one would have ever, including myself, thought that I had the ability to achieve anything, right? I have so much runway ahead of me and I have so much to learn. And one of the things that I'm pretty proud of is the fact that I'm teachable. I am coachable. I am teachable. That's why, I mean, I always have a coach, whether it's a mindset coach, a fitness coach, a nutrition coach. I always have a coach because for me, it's important to stay teachable. And so I'm not a unique individual. I, quite frankly, was at the bottom of the barrel. And I know for sure that anybody can change their lives. Anybody can, like you said, right? There are some natural, inherent, you know, skill sets or attributes. Look, I'll never play in the NBA. I'm 5'8", and I'm 45 years old, right? I never had a shot in the NBA. Muggsy Bogues was like the only guy that I think was shorter than me that played in the NBA, and there's like one of him. So, but because I was able to get sober, the biggest gift sobriety gave me was this idea that as long as I commit, I can do anything I want to do that doesn't require being 6'8". Right? I could do anything I want to do. And I believe that. I started a business. That business led to another business. That business led to another business in a whole separate industry. I learned on the job. And now I've got a successful business in that industry. It is all because I have stuck to the plan. Commit, do what you say you're going to do, ask for as much help as humanly possible. I always say, people say, what's one piece of advice that you can give? Ask for more help, way more help than you're comfortable asking for. Help is what we need as humans. Doing stuff alone is not only lonely and isolating, but ultimately short-sighted. And I'm not one of these entrepreneurs that believes I could do it all by myself, or it's way better if I just do it than if you do it. I know for sure surrounding myself with people that are better than me, that are willing to throw their neck on the line just like I am, is far better walking into the battlefield than just me alone.
Mm.
So I always say asking for help is essential for success, essential for confidence, and also, like, you know some people would say asking for help, or I mean, quite frankly, some short-sighted individuals would say asking for help is a sign of weakness, right? Whether it's with your mental health, whether it's with work, whether it's with your physical health, whatever it is. Some people would say, oh, you got this, so just push. Honestly, asking for help is a sign of strength. It's a sign of strength because you're confident enough in yourself to be able to say, I'm going to ask for help in this thing that I'm not great at. And that's showing vulnerability. But also, what it does is it empowers the people around you, specifically the people that you're asking for help from.
Mm.
So I've learned as a leader in business that when I ask the team for help, they're fired up to want to help, because potentially the owner of the business is asking for their help, their opinion. And so it's just been asking for help has been massive in my journey.
Yeah, I'm I find that extremely powerful as well. But in terms of your addiction, is there sort of some misconceptions that people might hold about addiction that you would like to talk about, or anything that has come up in that regard?
Addiction is a mental illness. It is been scientifically studied as a disease. It is a disease of the brain. My lipid system, which ultimately I think it controls my dopamine receptors. My lipid system is hypersensitive. So if I find something that I like, my lipid system fires at like a 10x compared to somebody who does not have addiction. I learned this stuff from having guests on my podcast. I had a guy named Dr. Russell Sorosky on the podcast, double board certified neurologist and addiction specialist. And he did and was a part of multiple human clinical studies on the brain and addiction. And what they found was that addicts are have a disease of the brain where their lipid system is super sensitive. And so that being said, there are ways to quell that lipid system, and it requires abstinence and community. I mean, it's funny, right? Like how these things can defy science, but at the end of the day, the success rate of addicts getting sober and staying sober is very, very low, super duper low. I think it's like less than 5% for people that are in active addiction at a certain point in their lives trying to reverse that. However, it is 100% possible because I'm a living, breathing example of it. Again, I am not a unique human being. I am just a guy who was able to surround myself with the right people and somehow, some way have the strength to continue pushing a day at a time. So that means that anybody can do it, right? And once I learned that I'm able to stop using drugs and drinking and hiding from my life, I was able to really apply it to anything and
Mm,
everything. My marriage, being a dad, being a business owner, being a competitive athlete, all the things that I've done, those, I think, four pillars really kind of define my life, right? Like I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm an athlete. And those four things are really what brings me the most joy in my life. Those four things keep my life completely full. The only piece that I think I want to start spending a little bit more time on, well, maybe a lot more time on for sure, is spending more time with friends. And, because I think that is something that a lot of men struggle with these
mm,
days, is this idea that, um, you know, a topic that I've been thinking a lot about. Men are not judged on how many good friends they have. Men are not judged on how much time they spend in like having fun and laughing with their friends. Men are judged on how they're providing, the job they have, the business that they have, or the role that they have within a certain business, how strong they are. Are you able to protect, right? Like, are you able to protect the family? Those are the two things that men have been judged on forever. We're conditioned to get a good job, hopefully find someone that you love and start a family and and stay strong. That, like, if you can hit all three of those things, you're going to be considered a successful man for the most part.
mhm,
The one piece that is not a focus for men is the quality of your personal relationships. And the interesting ironic piece of that is the longest standing human study in the United States of America is a study that started, I think, in the 1930s at Harvard University. And it was a study to quantify happiness. And it was kicked off with 350 sophomores at Harvard and 350 of the toughest kids of the same age in the streets of South Boston. So 700 men this study was performed on, and it's still going today. But what the study has concluded is the most powerful component of human happiness is the quality, not the quantity, the quality of your personal relationships. Period. Are you actively in a friend group, and do you spend a lot of time with them? It's not about how much money you have. It's not about how strong you are. It is truly the success rate of happiness from this group of men passed on to their kids, passed on to their kids, passed on to their kids, concludes that happiness is a direct result of your personal relationships. And so I think about that. How much time am I spending laughing and loving the people that matter, laughing with and loving the people that matter most to me. I spend a lot of time with my wife and kids, a lot, a lot, a lot, like as much as I can. But am I spending a lot of time with my friends?
Mm.
Not as much as I'd like to be, And so I'm going to be sort of pumping the gas on that one, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot about the preciousness of life. Um, and I'll share a personal story here in a second based on this question I'm about to ask you, but I'm interested to see how you answer it. When you were sort of in the midst of your addiction and you overdosed, was this an attempt to end your life, or was this an attempt to end the pain you were feeling, or a little bit of both?
When you're in active addiction, I don't think you're thinking too much about life or death. You're thinking about hiding.
Mm.
That is my experience. And you get so used to this hiding from your life that it doesn't feel like hiding anymore. It just becomes your lifestyle. So you basically walk around with a blanket over your head all the time, and it becomes comfortable. I if I recall, sort of, I knew that I had a problem with alcohol and drugs at a very young age, at about 15, 16. I knew that it was a real problem. It wasn't just a thing that I was doing. It wasn't a flash in the pan. Like, I liked it so much that I just wanted to live that way. And I didn't get sober for another 8, 9 years after knowing that this was a severe issue for me. It was my lifestyle. And I didn't think I was at the bottom of my totem pole, even though the actions that I took were very selfish. I could care less about my health. I could care less about whether I lived or died. And so I don't think the question ever became for me, is it about life or death, or sort of muting out the pain of life? It just became who I was. And that is what most addicts will tell you. It's not, you're not really thinking about whether you live or die. And like, if you see what's going on in like Kensington, Philadelphia, and places like that, where the streets are just littered with people that are just like zombies. But they're real people. They're actual humans. They actually can talk. They actually have feelings. And sometimes you'll see on social media that, they'll interview some of these people. It's becoming more and more of a thing, right? Where they sit down across some of these addicts and they talk to them, even in like a deep, stupor. They'll all tell you that they hate using drugs and that they've overdosed multiple times, because the drugs on the streets today are so severely fatal that everybody has Narcan in their pocket, because they know that the people that they're with, or they will overdose using fentanyl. So they're not thinking about life or death. They're just thinking about their lifestyle, which
Mm.
is that of being high all the time. And it's sad, because once you can kind of get in there and really sort of find a place to be able to connect rationally with some of these people, you can break the chain. I've done it. I've helped people get sober and stay sober. So, did I want to die? At the very end, I did. I wanted to die, because I didn't think that it was going to be possible for me to stop.
Mm.
But throughout the journey, it wasn't really a thought of like, oh yeah, today I want to die. It was like, this is my life. This is my life. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I do. And I don't know if there's ever going to be a day where it changes.
Mm. Yeah, I asked that because I lost my sister Rachel about 7 years ago to suicide. And so I think a lot about that sort of pain, I want to die sort of dichotomy, because I think that comes up a lot when you hear someone died by suicide. And I think it just, at least in my sister's personal case, like I have this feeling that I know she knew she was loved by her parents because we have great parents. They're still alive. Shout out to my parents. They're still together. Amazing. God bless them. I know she was loved by me and some of her friends and her family. And so I just think she felt like there was no other way out. And why, if I've tried everything, if I've tried all of these things and none of it works and I still feel this immense amount of pain and darkness and like I'm fucking in the depths of my own hell, I don't really want to die, but I need some way for this pain to end, and this is my only way out. Now, is that the correct solution? No, obviously not. But that's sort of the rationale I try to think about when thinking about someone who's in that sort of deep, 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 deep amount of pain, especially when it comes to someone I loved as much as my sister. And so that's why I ask you that question in terms of, is it different with an addiction than it is like a serious mental illness, even though addiction is a mental illness, but I'm talking more like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, things of that nature in regards to the mental illness of addiction, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, first of all, I'm really sorry to hear about your sister. Um, mental illness obviously is a very real thing. I feel lucky and blessed that I was introduced to the world of wellness as soon as I got sober. Now, I'm not saying that that is the end all be all solution for mental illness, but I will say that one of the strongest anti anxiety, anti depression tools that I have in my toolkit is fitness. And I would argue to say that if we took every single person that was struggling with mental illness and put a person in their lives that they wanted to look, that they wanted to impress, that they looked up to, which is ultimately what happened for me. As soon as I got sober, a guy walked into my life that I immediately was like, I want to impress that guy. I look up to that guy and this is what he's doing. And I want a pat on the back from him. And he was doing fitness. And so I got very lucky, like the stars aligned for me, because fitness has been a massive, massive component to me dealing with my mental illness of addiction. And, so for anybody that's struggling, listening and, and not feeling like there is a way out, that you've tried everything, I would just ask yourself, have you truly committed to a life of fitness? Because, you know, going out for a run or even a walk, there is just no doubt that on the backside of that run or walk or fit or gym session, you are going to feel, if not a lot better, at least a little bit better. You are just going to do that because it's a win. It's a win, and we need wins. This is why I created my company, Creatures of Habit. When I got sober, I was introduced to this world of fitness, nutrition, and then ultimately a little further down the road, mindfulness. The beauty of fitness and nutrition is that they are wins that we have, in many cases, if not most cases, complete control over. It's very, very hard to win in life, especially wins that you can control the outcome of, right? Like w- fitness is something that you can completely control. And fitness doesn't have to be some crazy intense hardcore workout. I'm just talking about movement, getting out and moving your body, stretching for 20 minutes, doing some push-ups and some sit-ups. When I first got sober, I was told from this guy Marcus that I needed to move my body and I needed to eat healthy food in order to start feeling better about myself. I was desperate. I wanted him to pat me on the back. So I listened to him.
Hmm.
He told me that I needed to eat oatmeal every morning as an easy, satiating, healthy meal that I can make taste any way I wanted to by adding things to it. He told me I needed to eat chicken and broccoli for lunch and chicken and broccoli for dinner. He kept it very, very simple for me. He told me that I needed to do that morning routine that I walked through earlier, the non-negotiable, less the like intense oral care and skincare routine, but all the other things. And he told me that I needed to get to a sober community meeting in the morning And he told me I needed to work out with him every day at noon. And he told me I needed to go to bed as early as I could. And he also, said, wake up in the morning and make your bed. So these little wins that we can stack up on a day-to-day basis, if we can commit to them, we are destined for feeling better. It is very hard to predict large scale wins. And that's because typically large scale wins require a lot of people. And until we're ready to ask for help from a lot of people, large wins are, you know, down the road. But the wins that we have absolute complete control over, if you can stack those up in the beginning of your day, your chances of having a great day are far better than not taking control of these little wins. What you put into your body, how you move your body, what time you go to bed, what time you wake up, how much liquid are you drinking? That's water, not alcohol. These little wins are massive.
Mm.
And honestly, I also think, and this is why I tell my story so much, like I'm here doing with you today, finding someone that you want to look up to, someone that you want to impress, was essential for me. And I think a big part of what could be essential for most people looking for direction. They're also known as mentors, right? Like you hear most entrepreneurs talk about mentors. Most athletes will always tell you that there was a mentor or two or three, a coach, a professor, an assistant coach, someone along the way that really changed the way they think about life. And it would be remiss of me not to say, for anybody looking for direction, feeling stranded, find a mentor. It's not easy, but life isn't easy. Life is way harder than it is easy. That's a fact. Like and that's why there's a massive obesity issue in our country, because not being obese is a lot harder than being obese,
Mm.
right? And so I have just found that these controllable wins are monumental and could be for anybody struggling with mental illness. I mean, of course, there's medications that I have no problem with. You need mental health medication, by all means, like go for it. But until you start taking action in your life, and I've had a lot of people give me shit about that. Like, you don't know what it's like to be severely depressed. Okay. I'm not trying to fight that. But what I am trying to say is that this has been my experience. I was severely depressed and hated myself and wanted to do nothing but get high or die. I started taking action in a positive direction, in a positive way in my life, harnessing those wins that I can control. And I watched everything in my life change around me. We are taught that like life and the success in life is all out here, what's around us, right? Where I live, the car I drive, the job I have, the house I live in, the people I surround myself with. That's all fine and good. But really where it's an inside job. It's an inside job. And the conversations that we have with ourselves are the most important conversations.
Mm.
So, I believe it starts here, here, here. And then the things on the outside will ultimately start to look a little bit different, if not a lot different.
I'm totally with you. I've been thinking about mental health as it needs to be a proactive approach. And so people should be designing their mental health toolkit before anything sort of happens in their life. And this goes down to the fundamentals that you were talking about: eating well, moving well, sleeping well, thinking well. You put that inside of your toolkit. And so that when something happens, you're able to stick to your protocols when you feel your worst, because that's when you need them the most. Because usually we start thinking about mental health and our things of that nature when the thing happens, when we get heartbroken for the first time, or when we get dumped or lose a job, or someone dies in our family, or the dog dies, and we're like, I don't know what to fucking do. None of this shit fucking works. Michael told me to journal. I don't want to fucking journal. I'm not doing that shit now. But like, if you did all of that stuff previously when life was okay, and you started working on it, and you threw all these things against the wall, then you built this toolkit. And now when your dog dies and this is your first loss you've experienced, you actually do have a protocol of journaling. So now you can get your thoughts out onto a sheet of paper. It actually feels cathartic. It's a forcing function. It's things of that nature. And so our society is too reactive. And I think you would obviously agree with this, that we need to get to be proactive. And when we do that, we're able to armor ourselves a little bit for the hard things that happen in life. Again, it's not going to always be perfect, and we're not going to always be able to, grow through it or whatever, because some things in life are just really hard and they suck. But for the most part, we can. And I think if we have that approach to mental health, it might make some difference in how we think and feel and move in the world.
Look, every single champion or the greatest of all time spends so much more time practicing than they do in competition. So much more. 10 times, 20 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more practicing than they do on the field. And that's done on purpose, right? Like, look, I love the cold plunge. I love the cold plunge. I mean, people roll their eyes when I say that, but the fact is that like, I don't love the feeling of being cold to my core. But the beauty of the cold plunge is that it's a negotiation almost every time before I walk in, unless I'm doing like a crazy long run and like, I can't wait to get in there. But for the most part, I cold plunge first thing in the morning, and it's a negotiation, man. I don't want to fucking do it. I have no interest in doing it. I really don't. Like, I try to talk myself out of it. Dude, you don't need to do it today. You could just take a cold shower, man. It's all good. But I do it. And I force adversity into my day, because when the hard things come down the pipe, I don't want to talk myself out of walking towards the pain. I want to be comfortable and confident walking towards it as fast as I can, because I know at the end of the day, I've gotten through every single minute of my life to date. Anybody who's listening to this podcast, you have gotten through every second, every minute, every hour, every day, week, month, and year of your life to date. You've gotten through it. And if you're listening to this podcast, chances are you have your ears, you have your eyes, you have, you're okay. And that's a fact. So if I can practice being in pain, when the pain actually comes, I'm conditioned to it. There's only one thing on the other side of fear, and that's ultimate freedom. Every time I'm scared, and it's a lot, I'm not like one of these like fearless humans. I think all of us experience fear. We all do. But I've just gotten so comfortable with it. Fear is an energy. Fear is the most powerful energy. It's more powerful than joy. Fear. Fear really can debilitate us from our heads to our toes. It could freeze us in place. Fear. It can make us shake. It can make our face turn white. It can make our palms sweat. Fear is a powerful energy. Again, I feel like it's the most powerful energy. So if we're able to actually harness fear, and when that energy comes we could feel it in our whole entire body, if we're able to actually harness that and use that energy, dude, come on. Like that sounds woo-woo, but it's not. Like anybody who's experienced real fear knows how powerful fear is. Imagine being able to encapsulate that and then repurpose it and use it as your motivation. I've figured that out. I have. I'm not afraid of fear. Fear is actually an ally of mine. I used to think about fear as like, there's two ways to live with fear, right? You could live in it, which is like, you know, in a box, feels like you can't move very much, claustrophobic, shortness of breath, dark, or you could live with it right here, boom, on your side, because it's there. It's there for all of us. But if fear was sitting right next to you, you could put your arm around it, know when it shows up, look at it and say, I know you're here. I see you. I hear you. I feel you, but you are not going to stop me. You are not going to stop me. I'm not going to sit in the box with you. I'm going to use you. I'm going to use you to get where I need to go. So keep coming. Keep coming.
Mm.
Every champion will tell you that,
100%. Yeah, that's the powerful mindset that you need to sort of adapt into your life. But you said that 9 months after you got sober, you met your wife. How have you maintained a level of intimacy all of these years, especially with kids and all these sorts of things? I'm very intrigued by that.
Long-term romantic relationships are complicated. They just are. I have been blessed with my soulmate, and that doesn't mean that there's not days or weeks that go by that, we question this, right? Oh my God, like, is this it? Is it over? Like there could be fights that you get into that make you fearful of the end. I mean, it's a human condition. I will say the number one most important piece of our success in relationship, my wife and I, is our like unshakable fear of communication. And, you know, there are so many times where we will get into an argument and we don't argue a lot, but we argue. We're two people living under the same roof with kids, living our lives. It's two different brains looking at the same thing. You're going to find discrepancies. And like there will be times where I feel like whatever the argument that we had is unsettled. And it's easy to just be like, all right, you know what? I'm just going to not talk about this, or I don't want to bring it up now. But I don't do that. I bring it up. And sometimes my wife will say, I don't want to get into it right now. And I'm like, babe, I know that. And I don't want to be uncomfortable either right now. But the fact of the matter is, I'd much rather be uncomfortable now for an hour or two than for a week or two.
Mm.
So let's bury the hatchet. Get off your chest, whatever you got to get off. And we might agree to disagree at the end of this conversation. But I do think that it's important that we talk about it. We have done that for 20 years. And, my wife is legitimately my best friend. She is the person who I enjoy spending all my time with. I love spending time with my wife and my kids. And quite frankly, we have two young kids, so we spend a lot of time together as a unit as opposed to before kids where we were spending a lot of time just the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's important to have date nights, although we're not as consistent as I'd like to be there. But communication is very, very important, especially when it comes to intimacy sexually. Right? There are going to be times in these long, long relationships where you're not having sex all the time. And it's just, some people that I've mentioned that to are like, what? What do you mean you're not having sex? Like, well, I have sex twice a week, 3 times a week. And I'm like, that's incredible. But the vast majority of people in these super long-term relationships, could go a while without having sex. I make it a point to have sex with my wife once a week, if not more. And if we're not there, we talk about it. We talk about it. It's important. Even if it's not like we talk about it and then go do it, at least we talk about it and know that we're on the same page. We
Mm.
want to do this. It's not that we don't want to do it. It's a time thing, the kids, whatever it is, we talk about it. And we've been pretty successful at sticking to that regimen. I believe that if your relationship after a long period of time is solely based on how much you're having sex, you're fucked. You are in big old trouble. Like your relationship needs to be far more than just romantic intimacy. It needs to be about support and love and friendship. That is something that I believe wholeheartedly in. My wife and I are best friends. We support the shit out of each other. We are really good communicators, even when it hurts, even when it hurts. And I think a lot of those things can also be applied to every relationship. Doesn't just have to be a romantically intimate relationship. But I will say for romantic relationships, after the first couple of years, like the hot and heavy, you see your partner walk across the room naked and you're like running to them, you know, that does wear off. And that doesn't mean that you're not attracted to your partner. I'm so attracted to my wife. I mean, like I said, I made love to my wife this morning, and like I was very happy to be in that position. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that the sort of brass tacks here is, do you have fun on a regular basis with your partner?
Mm.
And if you're not having fun on a regular basis with your partner, either you've got to change something, and that could really be communication, that could be therapy. We also have a therapist that we dip in and out of when needed. Like if there is an issue that the two of us have with each other that we just simply can't unearth with just the two of us, we've got an awesome therapist that we are able to call and schedule an appointment for, and we'll tell her the situation. She'll prescribe the amount of sessions that she thinks we need to go to in order to really sort of settle the disagreement or the issue, and we do it. And we probably use her once a year, once every 2 years. And I think having someone as a third party is really important for long-term relationships. A totally neutral person. That's why I like a therapist. Bringing in a friend or a family member, like, get a little hairy. I think having a therapist is great. So, and especially one that you trust, that you feel like you can call up and say, hey, we need to tap you. We're dealing with something. Um, like I had one of the greatest summers I can remember this summer. And it was all because it was speckled with trips with my family, my wife and kids. We went camping. We camped out. We camped out 3 times this summer, and it was amazing. Were there moments throughout those camping trips that I was thinking about work and not totally present? Of course there were. But am I cool with my wife tapping me on the shoulder at times and being like, hey, are you here, buddy? It's a little sting. It doesn't feel so good when she does that, but it's necessary because I'm a busy dude and I could very easily be checked out even though I'm there in the flesh?
Yeah. Yeah. I love hearing you talk about that and your wife. It's like my wife saved my life, and it's like a fucking blessing that she came into my life. She's not only a blessing for me but for my parents, right? Cuz they lost a child only 7 years ago. Now we're about to have a child. By the time this episode comes out, that little boy will be in this world, and he'll be another miracle too. And it's just yeah, I know, just
Congrats on having a little boy, man.
thank you. Yeah, it's hard to
It's
put into
it's it's
words.
it's
Y-
one of the greatest things, if not the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I mean, I'm sure having daughters would be awesome too, but having 2 sons is wow, you know. I've said this before, and the only piece of advice that I feel comfortable giving to fathers or new fathers, expecting fathers, is, I'm sure this changes as the kids get older, But the truth is that they're born into their environment. So whatever environment that they're born into, they think is kind of normal, right? I was born into an environment of chaos. And I kind of thought that was normal until I got a little bit older. You know, the environment that my two sons have been born into is the opposite of chaos. They're the luckiest. I mean, they don't know it, but they're like the luckiest dudes because they've got a mom and dad that love them unconditionally and show that love all the time. It's a very safe home and they're just loved. And what I would just say to a guy like you who's having a son is your children don't care about your things. They don't care about your car, your job, your money, your bank account, how much time you spend at work, how many businesses you've created, how many business associates you have. They don't even care how many friends you have. They only care about one thing, and that is how much attention you are giving them.
Mm.
And I have learned, and I learned this the hard way, but I'll share a quick story with you about this is probably about 4 years ago now. I was just launching Creatures of Habit and I was insanely busy. The, brand new business, brand new industry, learning on my feet, not feeling confident because I had not been in the world of consumer packaged goods, direct to consumer, digital media. Like I didn't know shit. And so I was just underwater and the emails were through the roof. They still are, but I've managed them a lot better now. But I remember coming home from work and I parked the car in my driveway. I was on my phone emailing. I walked into my house. My wife always really has dinner on the table at 6 o'clock. Like it's at 6 o'clock is when dinner hits the table. And I was rushing and trying to finish up an email. And I was standing at the kitchen counter emailing. And my young son, 5 years old, was trying to show me something. Dad, he was so excited I got home. I wasn't paying attention to him. I was really in trying to get this last email out before dinner. And he was talking to me. I didn't even hear him. And then he said, Dad. And I looked over to him. I said, buddy, don't you see I'm doing something here? And I watched his face go from excitement to pure sadness.
Mm.
And it crushed me. In that moment, it crushed my heart and my soul. And it was all my fault. It was my doing, what I just did. And that might sound small to somebody listening to this, but when you love something or someone so much that when they are hurting, it hurts you more, that's what happened to me there. And I realized that me trying to send out a fucking email that could wait, because emails can always wait, and pushing my son to the side while I'm on my damn phone made me realize this boy doesn't care about a fucking email. What I do right now in this little human's life is going to mold what he thinks about himself for the rest of his life.
Mm.
And his dad telling him to leave him alone at 5 years old when he's trying to show him something that he did that day is basically telling him, you're not worthy.
Mm.
You're not worth it. You're not important. And from that day forward, I never walk into my house working. I shut my fucking phone off. And as soon as I get into that house, I am father, husband. I am not entrepreneur. And there are days definitely where I am still, a little checked out at the dinner table. No doubt. I'm no angel. But I'm here to tell you that I do not put my business and my emailing and the shit that I need to get done in front of my son. Because all that kid wants in life, all he wants is the attention from his mom and dad.
Mm.
That's all he wants. He wants me to look at him, see what he's doing, give him a hug, tell him I love him, tell him he's awesome. compliment him, tell him when he's wrong too. They both like that. They both like me to tell them when they're wrong. They might not love it in the moment, but after it, I can honestly say there's maybe 10 times in their life that I've gotten where I've raised my voice and I've had to use a strong voice with them. Maybe 10 times. And it makes them cry when it happens. And I only would ever do it if it was absolutely necessary, like their mother's asking them to stop, their mother's asking them to stop, their mother's asking them to stop. They won't stop. I ask them to stop in a nice voice. They continue. Then, boom, I throw my hand down on the table and I say, hey, you're going to listen. Interestingly, they'll cry, but 10 minutes later, they run over to me and they hug me and they say they love me and they're sorry.
Mm.
So they need that too. But those kids want our attention and nothing else.
Yeah.
That is, if there's any advice I can give, that is the piece. They don't care about any of your things. They just don't. Not until they get to a certain age. I've shared this on social media before and people have been like, oh, you don't know, wait until they get to, teenage years. And I'm like, I'm not so concerned about teenage years right now. I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. And they're beyond the place in life where you're able to really help shape the way they think about themselves. And without the attention of their parents, they are not going to believe in themselves as much as they would with the attention from their parents. And so that's the advice that I think is monumental for parenting.
Thank you for sharing that. And I have one final question for you about fatherhood, and it's, how has being a father changed you as a man?
How has being a father changed me as a man? Being a father has made me a man.
Mm.
Before being a father, I did everything I thought was necessary to perform as a man. Fitness, work, money. Then I had children. And the first 2 years of my son's life, Finley, my older son, my first son, it took a long time for me to understand what it meant to be a father, because I opened up Seymour's, my second restaurant concept, in June. Finley was born in March of 2015. I opened up Seymour's in June of 2015. And then I went on the road to shoot a TV show in August of 2015. And that time in my life was very, very busy. And I put business before fatherhood, and I lost the first 2 years of Finn's life. If there's anything, if I have very little, few regrets in my life, if really any, outside of that one. If there's anything I wish I could turn the clock back on, it would be how I conducted as a father in those first 2 years of Finn's life. I was not there. I was busy.
Mm.
And my wife really wore the brunt of raising Finley in the first 2 years because of how busy I was. If I was a real man, I would have figured out how to get it done and been home for dinner. And I just couldn't figure that out. So, I think, how being a father has helped me be a better man is that you would think it would be like, oh yeah, it taught me to be less selfish, spending time on things that I needed to do for myself. But really, it taught me to be selfless, because at the end of the day, the greatest joy I have and the times in my life where I'm most happy is when I'm with my wife and kids. So it's almost selfish spending more time with my wife and kids. than selfless, spending time at work and in fitness and all those other things. So the responsibility of being a father is arguably or a mother is the greatest responsibility human beings get. It's a massive responsibility because you're bringing people into the world and they are going to do what they are taught to do, whether it's through words or through watching. And they watch everything. They see everything. And so I've had to be very mindful of my actions. And I think a real man, a strong man, is mindful of their actions and is self-aware. And that is what being a father has taught me.
That's beautiful. I'm going to try to put that in my brain and put it to use as I navigate these waters. I feel the same way though. Like it'll be the greatest responsibility of my life to be a dad and to have the honor and privilege of shaping that young man's life. So,
It's the coolest thing ever, man.
yeah,
The coolest thing ever.
yeah, I can't wait. I'm obsessed with baseball and WWE, so I'm just fired up to have a fucking watching partner.
100%.
Because then it'll be 2v1 against my wife. Right now, she wins out. We don't get to watch WWE on the TV. I got to watch it on my tablet. Now, when I have a son, when he's maybe like 3 or 4, he's like, "Mom, I want to watch wrestling." I win. She can't say no to him. Let's go, baby. But
well, I'm obsessed with the New York Giants, and that is not fun to watch with
no,
my
I'm
two
sorry
sons,
about that, man. That's
unfortunately.
tough. Yeah, that's tough. Yeah,
Preseason looked good. Preseason looked good. We got
I live
smashed yesterday.
I live close to Dallas, and so obviously the Cowboys are huge out here. Not a fan, but my mom is, and I want them to win. But who fucking knows? Every year, the whole state of Texas says we're going to win the Super Bowl, but that's obviously a lie. So yeah, but it is what it is. Michael, dude, I appreciate knowing you, man. I love this chat. Thank you for being who you are and putting out the stuff you do into the universe. And so, thank you. Where should we direct people to go to if they want to learn more, talk to you, or DM you, or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm at Micheal Chernow everywhere. If you want to check out my company, Creatures of Habit, it's an awesome brand. We make a high protein, overnight optimized oatmeal. We make a sleep support hot chocolate. It's Creatures of Habit with a K. So at Creatures of Habit everywhere and creaturesofhabit.com. It's really what I focus most of my business life on today, Creatures of Habit. And yeah, man, I'm super honored to be here. Thank you so much for taking the time, dude.
Absolutely. And everything Michael said linked in the show notes below. And we'll see you guys next time. Cheers. Thank you very much for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click right here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please don't forget to subscribe. But most importantly, above all else, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.